Did anybody did
One of the three great debaters.
How everybody doing?
hello?
Como ya estés?
All right, welcome to the podcast. We
Yeah,
are
we were
here.
just talking about Biden and how the dude could barely fucking talk. But we've
Yeah.
got Chris
Yeah.
over here. He really appreciates the CNN debates.
I appreciate the muting of
Yes.
them
Okay, yeah, that's
because
one of the.
it's a way. It's like, hey, let's see who can shout the loudest or speak over the other person the most. Whenever it doesn't have that muting thing,
Yeah,
like
true.
Chris Christie got demolished in the Republican debates because he didn't. The only time he spoke anything was when he was like defending the female candidate from the other ones, kind of trying to belittle her, and every other time he was like getting super spoken over.
Yeah, I mean, one of the craziest things is like you don't realize what goes on behind closed doors. But I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy was up there and everyone was jumping his ass. So it's interesting to
Oh
see
yeah.
how like these people are different people, but they can coordinate to do stuff without our like attention. And if you were to call that out, it's kind of a conspiracy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also see that in a debate like that, it's always the loud one who gets the most of the attention. Like DeSantis, he wasn't really loud. He didn't have like a crazy uh a crazy personality that is like entertaining to watch when debating. So because of that, even though I like him a lot, like if I was gonna vote for a Republican nominee, it would have been him over Trump for me. But
Dude, when he was wearing those fucking high heel boots, I was done. He should
Wait,
have
really,
been there.
you gonna judge him by what he wears?
Wait, who was
I
wearing the high
mean,
heel boots?
like, do you need people to like you so much that you're going to add 2 or 3 inches to your height? Like, one day you're not going to be wearing those boots, you know?
Wait,
No,
who was
that's how
wearing?
you
Who
see
was
it.
wearing? Ramaswamy was wearing the boots.
No, DeSantis, whenever he went on like live TV, he'd be wearing these cowboy boots, and there was like speculation that those boots, because some boots have like a 2 or 3 inch like
Oh
heel.
yeah. Oh yeah. Those
Yeah,
things be kicking. I'm
you know
telling
that
you, man.
that
I,
is
I
his
I
problem.
agree, but Lee, you don't think? I tell you, I genuinely probably would have voted for Chris Christie over Biden. I think had he been able to go the
Of course.
distance, I really do.
Well, because
He has.
he's the one who's against Trump. He's like the one who only backfires
Well,
against.
not it doesn't have anything to do with Trump. It has to do with he's the only one that showed any level of empathy or emotional realness in the debates. Everybody else was either like making fun of somebody or slamming somebody else. He actually defended one of his opponents, which it takes a very rare perspective to even be able to think to do that, especially as a politician. Um,
I think personally, like before you go in front of like Congress or like the Supreme Court, a lot of those people are coached on tactics and strategies.
Yep.
And I really think like he probably saw his opportunity to like divert from that kind of like mob like attack style and speak to the people. I agree. I mean, it does take some kind of like conscientiousness to realize that you're like dividing the fucking GOP. Like we're over here trying to get people to vote for us. We're not trying to get people to like hate people. But
Yeah.
I definitely think he thought that one through.
Well, see, yeah, the reason why the hate thing works is because it's entertaining. I think what people are confused in politics with, especially in debates, is a lot of people just like the person who's most entertaining. That's actually the reason why some like I don't want to say stupid, but some Americans are stupid. That's the reason why some Americans vote for Trump is because he's so entertaining to watch.
No,
No,
I
like
definitely
legit, like
agree. Yeah,
yeah,
like
legit. It's the
charisma
reason.
plays a big role in being a leader, you know?
Yeah, and
And
like
like
I think that's the biggest problem with America right now. Actually, I just think the biggest problem with America is especially like people who aren't into politics or people who don't understand it much. Right now, everybody in America only cares about one thing, really. Not everybody, but like majority, like of the people who don't follow anything, all they care about is entertainment. Really, like when they're watching something, it's entertainment that they really care about. And so Donald Trump shows that if you're really like if you're good at being entertainment, which is he's good at like talking crap about people, and that's why his debates were so famous when he won in 2016. And like
well, bro, it's all it is clickbait. They're literally
yeah,
their campaign, their advertisements, like the one he just did. It's all clickbait BS that they
well,
put
I'll
out,
offer a
and then
well,
it's
counter
meant to
perspective.
it's meant to sway attraction and attention, just like any other YouTube video would or any other
let
podcast
me
or anything like that. it has that instant gratification sense that a lot of
Yeah.
people are predisposed to these days. That's why we have such a mental health crisis in our country, because it's not good. Our attention span isn't meant to be minimized to that little tiny finite amount, and it happens in politics to whether which side of the aisle you're on. But
Yep.
Everyone's got ADHD, bro.
false truths, you
Yeah.
know?
And like let me finish my point real quick. Yeah, and so like because he's so entertaining, and yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's because America now we don't have that. Well, like it's because the internet is it's so easy to keep finding new things to watch on the internet. And so
Yeah.
because of that, yeah, of course, everybody's lifespan is shortened, because when you're watching something, you could forget about it and go watch something else, and you just rinse and repeat, and like you're never gonna get bored. And that's how addiction to phone
Yeah.
and watching like internet and just entertaining stuff, that's where it gets it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem in people's lives. And so what I'm saying is because he was so famous, and he came in debate in 2016, and he made a lot of like he was dissing a lot of like the nominee that he was going up against, and it was entertaining. He kind of
Who was
Trump. He
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
changed.
I was thinking the same thing. I knew he was talking about Trump, but
He kind of changed how you're supposed to, not how, but like he changed like how the debate are now. Now you don't have to, but you have to be entertaining now, which is you're right, it's the problem. But
Well, you're saying Trump changed the debate,
yeah, he changed how people
and he
debate.
did it without even showing up to any of the debates.
No,
How crazy
yeah,
is that?
yeah, but yeah, no, that's
He
my
didn't
point.
even
My
show
point
up
is-
until he was already inaugurated effectively
Yeah.
as a potential candidate.
yeah, because now
yeah,
like
but I mean, just to offer a counter perspective, like as a person who like, I'm a bit conservative in that I like want shit to stay reliable, and
Right.
he does offer this kind of like, like explosive personality, and like I really can't stand listening to him. Like there's a lot of times when he's talking where I'm like, dude, you're blowing steam up your ass. You're making everyone think that like you're this amazing person. But what he does do is he provides this kind of stability. Like when I think of when Donald Trump was being elected, I haven't voted my entire life, but I didn't want Hillary Clinton to like be the president. I was really worried about like wars, and I was really worried about, like these kinds of inflationary tactics that happen. Like they're not scared to like print money. I mean, Donald Trump printed $5 trillion and fucked up our economy, but at the same time, like the way the economy was going, it was reliable. Like we've seen a 20% inflation increase since President Biden was like in office, and you could blame a lot of that on like COVID. But I mean, if you look at every policy decision he's made, he's fed the military industrial complex. He started wars. He's like pushing this proxy. I mean, when you think of Ukraine, like it's just the rhetoric that's being used right now. Like as a person who doesn't really care to hear Trump talk, what I do care about is having a stable world and having a stable economy. And it's just like I get that shit got really exciting during 2016 in his debates, and shit was funny, but you kind of want levity in things like that. You want to know that a person can control the room. You want to know that a person can direct attention. You don't want to hear the same talking points, because then you tune out. I do think it's important for people to be involved in politics. I think there's a huge population of America, left, right, center, independent, libertarian, that really just wants to go about their fucking day, feed their kids, and like count on a paycheck, But when you've got people who say the same shit over and over again, it like really starts to diminish trust and focus in the process. Like we're a democratic country, but we've got two fucking parties that can be elected. Now you can blame that on elite billionaires and millionaires, but realistically, it's the people who aren't going out to vote. I think the most people who voted ever is like 63 million people. We got like 320 million people. At least half of those people are adults, So yeah, he's a bit of a charged person, but I think it's important to have more people involved in the electoral process. Now, to Lee's point, I do agree that, people should focus and listen to the policies and the issues and decide what's best for the country. But if you're only going to look at this person as a guy who talks a lot, you're ignoring the economy we had. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I should say, but we were all in the military. We got tax cuts. Like we saw a lot of money coming back to us. I mean, we didn't go to war. 4 years we were in the military. We didn't go to war. There wasn't even like a whisper of war. And he defeated ISIS. I mean, ISIS is still around. There was a terrorist attack on Russia. But the thing is, like, shit was different. And right now, the Middle East is fucking scary. Iran has billions of dollars to support these like militias. And Russia's hugging China right now. NATO's trying to go on an all-out war. Like, Trump is a very divisive figure, yes. But would you prefer a person like that to speak to world leaders who are like easy to pounce on weakness? Or do you just want someone who's going to say yes to the people who want to blow shit up? I just don't like hearing the same story over and over again. And that was a real problem in politics for a long time.
Wait, so you're saying that Trump is the one that would be the one to talk to people and would, or I guess before.
We didn't have a president visit North Korea in like decades, dude.
Right,
and
but
they were ramping up rhetoric and
that's true. But I mean, we've also never had a president suggest that we would extricate ourselves from NATO. And we've also never had a president take us out of the World Health Organization. And I think that ostracizes our country geopolitically pretty strongly. But I want to say in regards to the economy, yes, he printed a bunch of money and he did it did the instantaneous effect of a lot of growth. It did very well. But the only thing I would suggest and wonder, do you think that
in America,
we
produce our own oil? So that's being energy efficient is kind of what like helped our economy. The $5 trillion during COVID.
But what I would ask is do you think that may be less of a specific tactic that worked and more of just kind of how the typical model for inflation would go whenever you print that level of money, which of course in the short term it's great. It's going to give you a lot of options and a lot of monetary value, and a lot of stuff is going to be forced into the economy, which is going to signify and indicate a lot of growth. But as inflation works, is that it's a band-aid on a deeper wound where it's going to look really good in the short term, as it did in his office, which a lot of people gave to him, apart from the COVID thing, a lot of credit for. And it was a decent idea. But I think when it comes to printing all that money, causing inflation, it's good in the short term, but it's not going to work for the long-term gains. It's not sustainable, which is why it started to fall apart whenever he came out of office. It was good for the short term and made him look very great, right? But for the long-term sustainability,
it made him look bad. No one likes when the Fed prints money, dude. Like, our dollar back in the 70s was worth a lot of money, and now it's worth like 60% of what it was worth back then. So I would argue that it's the policies. Like, when he did that, it was meant to like avoid a depression, and that's like the excuse. I don't really know if that was what it was for, or if he just wanted to give people $1,200 to boost his like political rating with the election coming up. But what you're talking about is like policy. Like, sure. Inflation is going to happen, but like you said, what do you do to tamp down inflation? And that's policy. Like, when we stopped being energy efficient, like all of our bills went up, and like, in regards to our relationship to NATO, I mean, it's nice to have an alliance between countries, but to have an alliance between countries that are seeking to colonize like other countries or control the democracies of other countries, like, that's a little bit dangerous. And like, in terms of the WHO, in order to give like the World Health Organization, I mean, when he discusses it, he talks about the buy-in and like what the money was. And it's like, America after World War II wanted to be like the superhero of the world. Like, neocons are people who thought that we would control the world. And like, the World Health Organization it felt like it was like committing a coup against populations of people during COVID. Like, they single-handedly shut down entire economies and countries because we were listening to the WHO for most of our COVID policies. Like, and I don't know, man. I think that some of those things would be really great decisions. I mean, I think it's like $10 billion to end homelessness in America. Like, there's a lot of stuff money could be going to that we're wasting on places that are aiming to like control other people. Like, what's like, do you believe in globalism? Do you think that something like that's actually happening? Because I mean, I guess I'm coming from the position where I believe there was an effort to like inculcate populations of people into a single perspective of reality. And I believe like,
I'd agree with that. Absolutely.
So globalization has been happening for a very long time, and like
I think
Donald
that was, I
Trump,
mean, that's the war on drugs right there, right? Like
yeah,
just
I
trying to
mean,
take out any freedom of thought, or
any
anything that might.
counter narratives. So imagine bringing a sledgehammer to that. Imagine if like a person had been spending 20 years laying out an infrastructure of these global entities that have control over like sovereign populations. Like in America, we're supposed to have like the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. But if you have like global organizations like NATO and the World Health Organization that can dictate, sovereign policy, I I mean, like, do you want that? Do you want a big brother? Like I understand working
Mm.
together, but I think it's important to like maintain
Wait,
our
wait, wait. You're
values.
saying you're saying the World Health Organization didn't have the power to dictate sovereign policy or legislation. The Health Organization had no power over the United States' choice in how it governed the COVID-19 policies in the country.
Well, I mean that, and this goes to the globalist effort, right? So when you've got a lot of countries working together and a lot of countries that buy into the World Health Organization,
It does
it's
get
like it's
cliquish.
like
That's
it's like when
true.
you hire
That's
a lawyer, right? You're not just gonna like listen to the lawyer and make your own decision. You're gonna follow the lead
right.
of the lawyer. They're the
It
professionals.
does get very cliquish. That is true. It gets very like, hey, this is the sway and the feel of the mass, and you kind of have to get on to get along. That's true.
Yeah.
That's fair. I
For a very long time, dude, that's what America's been. Like we've just
Oh yeah.
followed the consensus. And like I understand that it creates a lot of like fear because you don't know what's happening, you don't know what's gonna happen. But I mean, you know how many people guessed that we were gonna go right back into wars when Joe Biden went into office? A lot of fucking people guessed that we would be at war, and like you could say we're not at war, but I mean providing American ammunitions to like Ukraine is like such a dangerous move. And like Biden's like first year in office, he had all this rhetoric about putting Ukraine into NATO, and like, bro,
Wait,
you
why?
you,
So
you
let
just
me let
don't
me
even
let me
open up.
stop. Let me ask you there. Wait, why is what's are you saying? Why would you say it's dangerous to provide weapons or anything of defensive use to Ukraine? Why would you say that's dangerous?
Okay, so let's start with the fact that the Ukraine, right, has
Mm.
been like recorded as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Okay. And the Ukraine was created during the Soviet Union. And whenever the Soviet Union ceased to exist, Putin wanted that land back. But out of
Yeah.
respect for Western nations, he was like, all right, cool, just don't bring them into NATO. We don't want weapons on our border. Now imagine, I mean, I know y'all have heard this, and I know this is like a conservative talking point, but let's say, I mean, no, not even. Fucking during the Cold War, Russia was gonna put nuclear armed warheads in Cuba. What did America do? Did we fucking provide Caribbean islands weapons? No, we like told Russia like fuck no, dude. Like, and that's when like all this like espionage shit started up, and like it's kind of the same concept with Ukraine. Like if we've made an agreement, that we want our border secure, and you're threatening us with rhetoric, right? Because I mean, we weren't going to put like the Ukraine into NATO. It was all rhetoric, but like
Oh, what? There was some serious thought and power, and probably still is truth to the fact that Ukraine will probably become part of NATO and is probably intended to become part of NATO.
and
It's just not going to happen quickly.
that's why it's bad to supply them with weapons, because I mean there's been a red line like in like American Russian relations, like even like this has been spoken about since the fall of the Soviet Union,
So
and
would you?
out of
So would you?
nowhere.
Well, let me ask you this then. Sorry,
Go ahead.
would you? Would you? Okay, so if we don't supply them with weapons, would you want to do anything should they get on the hair's edge of losing the war? Say they're going to become overrun.
See,
Um, Now, what would happen? What would you? Uh, what would you say that's fine? That's what needs to happen, and that would create stability, or would you say?
no,
Uh,
I
so what
I
what would you?
I personally believe that all of this could have been avoided. I don't know if you've seen reporting that like Zelensky and Putin were going to have an agreement, and they were going to give up some land, and none of this would have happened, and they would have had to sign a treaty that they would never join NATO. And then like Boris Johnson and the United States State Department decided to like veto that shit basically, and told Ukraine that we would supply them and help them defend their country. And I mean, so there's reports that in 2014, the Ukraine was bombing like the Donbass, like the Russian speaking areas, because they wanted Ukraine. Like, I mean, this is a legit fascist state, right? When you like, it's like if America told the immigrants, you have to speak English, we don't want you speaking any Spanish or we're going to kill you. So like, they wanted them to totally assimilate to Ukrainian culture despite their heritage and history. And so as a tactic to like provoke Russia, they just started like trying to assimilate these people. And, you know, Russia had taken Crimea during the Obama administration. And like the purpose of that was to keep a strategic option open just in case like what's happening now happened. And so there were so many like times that we could have de-escalated this. And, you know, if we're funding a war between a country that has
our
the
job
option,
to de-escalate it though?
What'd you say?
We could have de-escalated it, yes. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but is it our job to de-escalate it, or is it Russia's job to never escalate it in the first place?
Is it our job to provoke them into fearing for their sovereignty? Like, I mean,
you can make a lot of excuses for provocations. I mean, whenever we sent Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, that was a provocation. Whenever the Philippines does a regular routine trip to one of their sovereign territories, you look anywhere on CCP News, it's indicated and highlighted and showcased as a provocative move for the Philippines to visit their own exclusive economic zone and visit one of their own islands, and one of the islands that's been with them for triple-digit years, hundreds of years. It's been part of the Philippines. They go to a routine mission to resupply soldiers, and one of their soldiers gets his thumb cut off. That'll's highlighted and very easy to justify if you can control the state media, which Russia does, as does China. It's very easy to say
I'm not
and
arguing that
take out the context. So
I think you're arguing for spitting in someone's face and like expecting them not to like hurt you. You know, I mean, if you've set a red line,
whose face did Ukraine spit in?
Bro, if it's true that they were bombing Ukrainian or Russian speakers, like, and like, just the fact that there was a peace agreement in talks and it ended, like, why would a country that knows, like, bro, America's not stupid. Like, we knew that by doing this shit, we were going to provoke a war with Russia. You know, just because we control the narrative doesn't mean we're right. And like, we spit in their faces constantly. Like, Ukraine could have saved so many people. Like, it produces the most wheat or grain in the entire world. And like, they could have kept all of that. They could have like really kept their people. They could have kept their nation good. No bombs in their fucking capital. The economy would have stayed the same. All they had to do was not join NATO, not even like play with the rhetoric to join NATO, or like I don't know. Imagine if someone was bombing Alabama, right? And all they wanted in return was for Puerto Rico to no longer be a U.S. territory. Okay. Now let's say the people of Puerto Rico were like, we're cool with that. Go ahead, just sign us over. We're chilling, you know. But instead, we bombed them back. We could have saved millions, hundreds of thousands of lives by just like going with the peaceful option. You know, sure, Russia like really escalated this. They invaded a sovereign nation. Like, what they did is not good, period. I'm not like trying to defend Russia. What I'm trying to state is that this was provoked for a very long time, and us supplying weapons is an obvious provocation of war. And if we really cared about peace and saving people's lives, we would find a peaceful remedy, even if like there's been multiple times when it's been offered. You know,
did we supply weapons before the war?
No, I think Europe was. I think they had their own weapons, and then Europe was the first one to supply, and then America started. But the whole point is like we're provoking a war, you know. And why are we provoking a war? Like right now, the rhetoric is that Ukraine needs to join NATO so that like they're safe. But realistically, they were safe before the option even hit the table.
So let me ask you, can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yeah.
would you say that Israel was provoking a war as well?
Absolutely. I mean, but you also have to take into account that, okay, so how much do you know about Iran?
Enough to spell it, I guess. A
Hello.
So,
decent amount.
so
decent.
Donald Trump worked very hard on passing the Abraham Accords. Now, it really wasn't him; it was his ambassadors. And there's a really great podcast between Lex Friedman and Jared Kushner, and he was the American envoy that led, the path to the Abraham Accords. And he speaks about how Iran was out of money. The thing that you need to understand about Iran is it hates Israel, right? It wants to keep the Middle East like Islamic, and like back in the 1940s when Britain gave like that land to Israel, like that was a big no-no for every Muslim country. Like the first like 10 years of Israel's existence, they had like 2 wars, and during those 2 wars, they won a lot of land and then they gave it back so that they could have peace. Okay. Now, with that said, they weren't supposed to be there in the first place. They argue like ancestral heritage as a claim to the land. But when you have a country that is inculcating populations into hating a specific entity and funding weapons and the ideological drive to murder these people, who's at fault? I mean, like, I don't think
Somebody's funding the ideological what?
You're talking about
Iran directly funds the Houthis. Iran
Oh,
directly
yeah.
funds Hamas.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's more than that. I mean, when Americans were in Afghanistan, like there were bounties out on people, and it was paid for by Iran. So the problem with what's happening now in Israel is Iran managed to get a lot of money, and like they're able to really fund these wars now. And Israel's such a small place. Like I really think that it was dangerous of them to treat those people like hostages. When you look at like the way Israel saw Palestine and the Palestinian people, it's kind of gross. Like some of them were allowed to come in, but you had to literally totally assimilate. And like in America, when you immigrate here, like we expect assimilation, but we also expect you to like keep some of your culture. Like we're not going to force you to get rid of your culture. But the problem is like if you have someone that hates you so damn much that they want to kill you, and they elect people into government that want to kill you, like there's always going to be conflict. And the problem is
they elect people in the government? You can't say that everybody in the government of Israel wanted to kill Palestinians.
Not Israel. I was talking about the Palestinians. So the Palestinian Authority runs the West Bank, which is like a metropolitan kind of area in Palestine. And Hamas is in Gaza. And that's where like you see people dying all the time. And like it's very sad. But when you think of all of the money that's been sent there to like establish a good society, it's actually been used like for this shadow war against Israel. And like it's just if you have people that hate you, are you gonna try and put someone in place that's gonna like calm that down? Like, I mean, when you think of like Germany, when Hitler was in office, like a lot of people were propagandized into like hating people. They thought they were the superior race. When you have a situation that can't be resolved, if like one perspective is like around still, I mean, you're gonna have conflict. And a big problem is they don't want Israel there. Like a lot of people just want them gone, they want them dead. And like some people just want to live in peace. But if your goal is to keep hating people and not finding a resolution, it's tough. Like a 2-state solution was offered during the Clinton administration. And it's like, so the Palestinians and supporters of Palestinians argue that all they're doing is fighting against colonialism. And that's true. That is true. Like when you think about it, Israel colonialized that whole area. They took land for Israelis and they sent these people away from their homes. And like,
well, they didn't decide the divvying up of the land, though. That was the colonizers that were there before both of them. But my question would be, so
let me say
the problem.
Let me say something real quick. So you're saying that the Palestinians need to that Israel is trying to assimilate like total control of the Palestinian in their spot. Is that what you're saying, Mahia?
Yes, in terms of like wanting to make them a Western democracy. So like they don't want them to be ruled by hatred and like Islamic martyrdom. Like they want them to just be people that are happy to send their kids to school. I mean, they're killing them and they're blowing up schools, right? So this is like a fucked up thing to say, but in general, what they want is like someone they can work with.
So I think that like if like there needs to be at least some kind of assimilation. Like if they're gonna run like
You're
if
a
it's gonna be
colonizer. That's how that
yeah.
conversation works. That's it.
They're what?
I'm just saying, like, that's when you are like colonizing people, they are justified in standing against it and having a resistance to it.
So
but what you're
the only
arguing is the best path forward. The assimilation is colonialization. You're trying to colonize them into like a democracy.
and you said charter, which is an interesting choice of words, because I would agree with you, and that would all I would agree with all of that if it wasn't for the fact that in the current Hamas and ruling party of Palestinian of the country, in their founding charter, it says that they will eradicate and kill and get rid of anything in regards to Israel, including the entire country. It says that they will get rid of it at all costs. So the colonialism argument doesn't work, because you can't have that argument if it's your government's goals to eradicate another nation. And the nation that they're trying to eradicate just wants to get onto speaking terms and be able to talk to them, as any nation does, as the US does to Canada and Mexico, as Germany does to Switzerland, as any modern geopolitical nation state does.
Well, to the perspective
Colonialism doesn't
of
work
the
that way.
Palestinians, it's colonialization. Like the second that they got that land, it was an effort to colonize the area. Like you have to embody the perspective of the people who are fighting back. I side with Israel, but I also side with the Palestinians, because it sucks to have your land taken from you and your identity stripped from you. But I mean, we can't keep killing each other,
Right.
and I think there needs to be a middle ground.
Yeah,
And
that's
they're
what I mean.
justified in seeing the occupation of it, like of their land, as colonization. Like that was theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting if you look at the map of Israel and Palestine. I wish I had a way to kind of bring it up on here, but if you look at it, the way it's kind of organized and set up, I think, and you look at the goals of both Palestine and Israel, if they were to rearrange their borders very, very slightly,
Yes. Yeah.
they could literally not only form a very, very cool and uniform symbol of yin and yang, no pun intended, but it's the truth. You just shift the borders a little bit, they literally form yin and yang, the same symbol. And I see it literally extends the Palestinian state, so they have some head of some beachfront, gives them the real estate they already want, and it gives Israel a little bit more room to breathe. And down with the walls. There doesn't need to be walls. If there's walls, there's always going to be a problem. I mean, there was a wall in Berlin that kind of had a big deal, right? So if you just shift a little bit, both things could be done. But
the problem is we're speaking from a place of privilege, brother. Like there's people whose ancestors like lived there. There's people who have died already. There's martyrs. Like you can't assume peace when you've been oppressed. Like they want to win or die. Like, do you know what jihad is?
Well, that's the problem right there. Is there's no middle ground for Palestine, is that they want to win or die, and they have to find a middle ground, right? And there's they don't elect, or as if elections would happen there, they don't have a ruling party that wants a middle grounder to be able to say anything to anybody. They want a party that says, hey, this is all of ours, and if you don't like it, well, we'll just kill you, or we'll kidnap you and then kill you first. Like there's got to be some room to wiggle and conversate, though, doesn't there? Otherwise, how what's to say that they don't treat that to their next neighbor?
So
like if we're living in a house,
because this is the dichotomy of our conflicts, because we're saying this for Palestine and then we're like promoting the war in Ukraine, right? America and Western nations are basically doing the same thing to Russia right now. Like if you had a red line, right, and like this would make you my enemy, and this would like provoke me into war, and you cross that red line, which is like the Palestinians crossing into Israel and murdering people, like the problem is when you have a conflict that is able to spark off at any second, do you want to be provoking that conflict, or do you want to find like mediation to peace? And the problem is, like with the Middle East, we gave money to an entity that is willing to promote violence, and in Ukraine we are funding violence. So it's like if you're assuming the people in charge have people's best interests in mind, right?
Well, I don't think the people in charge have anybody's best have many of anybody's best interests in mind. That's an unfortunate thing. But I don't know if we're funding violence to a state that's defending an invasion. I think that would be funding a defense. I think anybody.
Okay, so if there was an option to end the violence, should we take it, or should we continue funding violence?
Well, obviously we should take it. Yeah.
Obviously, right?
Is that well? Hold on. Now, is that so obviously? Because if I come over to your apartment and I say, "Hey, like the half of your apartment is mine, bro," like, what are you doing? Let's just say, "Hey, there's no problem. We shouldn't be violent, right? You should just let me have this. We should just agree and have a treaty. Just give me half of your apartment, bro. That's all. That's all I want. Let's not be violent. Let me just get that half real quick."
It's still,
what's to stop me from doing that again?
Well, it still has to be like a negotiation, yes. So yeah, it's not as simple as just that. But well, the point is,
there has to be a negotiation. So if America says, "Hey, Mexico, we want to take 20% more of your country," there has to be a negotiation, or we kill you. That's what it has to be.
Well, the thing is, Chris, there's different levels of mediation, right? Like we use tariffs as weapons, and like we use our economy as a weapon in leveraging other countries into doing what we want. And like in the case of Mexico, like you bring up a good point, but why would we jump straight to violence when we can use economic sanctions or tariffs?
That's my point.
I agree with that. That's my point too, and that's what Russia should have stuck to.
Like I would rather what you just said right there. I would rather that scenario than us just start attacking each other.
Exactly.
We just need to talk. Like that. That's like that can happen. Like, hey, like give me this land, or I'm gonna kill all these people. But see, at least we're talking, and so now we can at least form some kind of middle ground. Or if not, then no. But now we know where each side are at, and we just need to start talking. The problem is I don't think they talk to each other enough, and so because we don't talk to each other, they don't talk to each other enough. They just think each other's side is so bad,
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and so I just think they just need to communicate more, but of course they don't want to communicate.
When you consider the military-industrial complex, you see the thing is all of these things are extremely layered, and we're not like pushing accountability on the people who are like in positions to communicate these things. Why us as American citizens are we comfortable having these discussions of peace, but the people who are in the positions to actually negotiate peace aren't? And this is the problem with accountability. And like, just to go back to like, that 2016 debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, like you need someone with a sledgehammer that's not going to do what the consensus tells you to do. Like if your economy is failing and you have weapons manufacturers that could benefit off of a war, that's your first option. Let's go ahead and let's sell some weapons. Let's like, where'd everyone go?
I think you zoom in.
Oh no, I'm just putting you're talking. I'm just putting it on you for talking. That's all.
Oh, okay. What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, whenever Western nations want a conflict, there's ulterior motives, right? And we're assuming that everyone that's leading the charge has the best intentions in mind. I mean, I think at least 300,000 Ukrainians have died, and like we've all had our eyes on this Palestinian thing for a long time. We've all known that these Iranians use proxies to like kill people. We've been victims of that. And if we're going to not do something to de-escalate and bring peace, then we can't call on these other nations to do it. It's like we create this fucking bad guy and we forget that we're bad guys too. Not our country as a whole. I mean, look at us three. We all want peace. Americans aren't people that want to fucking murder people. We want people to realize their full potential. And the problem is there's select individuals, most with sociopathic motives, that just want to get ahead, that want to get a pat on the back, that want to make millions of dollars. And, if we don't take that into account and we see everyone who's our enemy as the bad guy, then we'll forget what we've done. I mean, if you look at Libya, look at the genocide in fucking Yemen. I mean, like, there's so much that's happened under our watch that we've ignored. And like in that 2016 election, we got to see the dismantling of this like web of lies. And like now the propaganda is so obvious and American people just don't want to sit back anymore. And I think it's good that people are involved in these conversations and care about these topics and want to find a political leader that can do these things. But it's also about holding people accountable, because if we allow these people to stay in power or to stay around power, these things are just going to continue to happen. And we're going to be lulled right back to sleep. And we're going to forget that these things are happening. And we're going to be called crazy. We're going to be called conspiracy theorists. We're going to be called like anti-vaxxers, bro. Like the thing is, one of the best ways to propagandize a population is to create a social reality. And when you're listening to the narratives given to you by the people who are promoting war, what you're actually doing is being inculcated into a social reality. And that's not truth. That's one version of truth. Yeah. There's more versions of truth out there, bro. Like American history, Canadian history, Mexican history, like the Crusades happened. How many people like really give a fuck about the impacts that those historical events had on those countries? We don't. We care about the American narrative. We care about the American perspective. And, there's so many American perspectives, but the ones that go against this kind of thing are suppressed or delegitimized. And this is a big thing that's been happening in these wars. Like, no one wants to sit down and have a conversation with President Putin. Like, Tucker Carlson had one, and he talked about history. And from what I got from that is, like, he sees Ukraine as a part of Russia, and he wants that land back. And that's dangerous. Like, we don't want that. We don't want him to be right on the borders of NATO. Same concept as him not wanting NATO to be on the borders of Russia. So if we're going to go ahead and play this game where we provoke everyone.
Well, did he give an accurate depiction of history, though? When he was talking about history, did he give an accurate depiction of it?
I don't know. I'm not Russian. I mean, I think America has banned a lot of foreign news. I mean, for a good purpose. Like you said, those countries aren't good. Like, just because we're talking about the conflicts don't mean that the people we're talking about are good people, right? Russia practices inculcation. Russia propagandizes their population, and the biggest goal of a government is to assimilate their population onto one perspective, right? So they could do what they want. And it's just, in our country, we try not to have that. In our country, we try to have diversity of opinion. We try to have public discourse.
Right. I would say that that's a dictatorship. They try to assimilate and have everybody under one thought would be a dictatorship.
That's communism too, bro. Like,
yeah, that's communism as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what communism is. Yes, a dictatorship under communism. Yes.
The overall goal of people in power is to maintain that power. And if realizing your perspective of reality means controlling the minds of everyone in your country, that's what you're going to do. And like in our country, we have freedoms. We have like basic human rights here, and we have the freedom of speech. Yeah. We get to talk about these things. But in other countries, this conversation will put you in jail or have a target on your back,
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Yeah, Israel and then they probably don't even have like freedom of speech. And so maybe that's the reason why a lot of them, they don't want to talk, because they're scared to, because they never know what it's like to, to be able to have freedom of speech.
You mean so Palestine?
Yeah, so I think it's like because America, we see, like, I don't know much about like the Israel and like the Palestine stuff, if I'm just gonna be honest with you. But what I see in America is like, I see that freedom of speech, like it makes all of us like being able to have our own opinion on everything, and like and that's how we come up with these ideas of like, they just need to talk more. But like the problem is they probably don't know that, or they haven't seen that, or like they probably don't like know the idea of freedom of speech at all. Like,
Yeah, they can't even contemplate it or like
that's
get.
what I'm saying. Yeah, they
It's
don't
the
even know
truth
the
Speaking
idea.
from a position of privilege is
Yeah,
when we discuss
so
these things, we have to like embody the perspective of the people
exactly.
where they're at, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard. Like, you can't really do that unless you actually go there and experience it. So like we can say and we can read and all that stuff, but the truth is the only real way to like really understand how they feel is to go there and like actually like be around it. That's like really the only way. So like, this is why it's so hard for me to believe everything now. Like, like believe news, believe
For
which
everyone to believe right
side,
now.
you know, is good or bad. I don't even know what news to watch. Like, I watch all of them.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I don't watch
the problem
one.
is AI
Yeah.
is just making it even harder.
Yeah, like I watch all the news. I watch every time I watch Fox. I watch something on Fox. I make sure I watch it on CNN, you know, NBC, you know, all of it because I know, because it's crazy how CNN and Fox
Yep.
News are literally total opposite on opinion. It's
Yep.
crazy. I don't know how that is possible when they're both saying they're telling the truth. That means one of them is lying, or they're both lying. And so because of that, it's so hard to believe things now too. And I think that is one of the downside of freedom of speech, but
Whoa, that's dangerous. No, what the downside of that is
no,
that
no,
we
wait,
allow
let
people to
me finish. Let me
manipulate us
finish.
into
It's
believing
one of the downside. It's just people can lie, but it's freedom of speech. The value of it is much, you know, it's much more important than that. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying, like,
Do you think it should be? And sorry if you want to.
no,
I just have a question on that position you're holding. So would
Yep.
you say that, like, maybe not for the average person, right? We want to come on here and we want to say things, and certain things, you know, somebody else does it on another podcast and they say something that's not true. Nobody can stop that, right? It's impossible to proctor or legislate, right? But do you think a public official has a responsibility to be, I guess, inclined to speak the truth if he's speaking to the public? Do you think that it should, or do you think it should be laissez-faire completely? And if a public official is documented as lying in court or to the public or whatever it is, you think that should be completely fine? Or do you think that should be something that is, you know, it's not like you said an exaggerative term and, you know, you're sentenced to death, but do you think that's something that should be, I guess, proctored or tracked or enforced?
Yeah. I think that is it. Yeah, because we need to. I think what the government needs to be more. The government needs to be more like police, where like it. Whenever you say, or like whatever you say that can like heavily influence, it needs to have hard facts. Otherwise, it's gonna mislead people, and it's gonna make them do or believe in things that are just gonna hurt and harm people.
All right,
And
let me argue against that, because
okay,
that's a very dangerous feeling to feel.
Go ahead.
Because the problem is, like, that would never work, right? Because then you're assuming that the people in government, in positions of authority, are only going to tell the truth, and then it makes us slaves to a totalitarian regime, and that's really dangerous. That's how Hitler convinced people to murder millions of people. You know, you can't. Propaganda was like the fucking Nazis basically came up and perfected propaganda. Like,
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying the years leading up to it had some effect.
No, like I got you. I got you, Shazad. It's just because what you're pretty much saying is that if all these news can be corrupt, the government can be corrupt too. Pretty much. That's pretty much what you're saying. And yes, I see that, and that is like the difference between the conservative point of view and the liberal. Is just like conservatives, like we can't just give all the power to the government, because the government could be corrupt and they can abuse it, especially if like people that wants and understand it go into it. Yeah. See, like, it's at the end of the day, it's just
what you're saying is that the government can inculcate its population as long as it keeps us safe. And the problem is, like, the war in Iraq was largely due, like think about Vietnam. Like, we had a counterculture wave. When the soldiers came back, they got spit on. No one really liked that fucking war. It was a false flag event that led us into that war, but it led to the liberation of, like, a lot of people. You know, like the Indochina War is what it actually was. And the problem with the media controlling the narrative, because the thing is, they all lie. That's why that's why freedom of speech is important, because we need independent perspectives on things that are happening. We need independent reporters. We need,
Okay.
like, if we keep everything centralized, we're at risk of losing any shred of truth, any shred of like freedom. Like, we are limited to the people who can convince us of something to convince us of something. And I don't think that's right.
Right. Okay. I see your point. So how do we know what to believe then? If
Do your own work.
no, no. My point is, so okay. So we just look and then we just determine what we believe in. Like,
find sources you believe in. I mean, there's so many
Okay.
people who have like stood against regimes and establishment and propaganda and lies. There's people who like, the problem is when you have positions of authority, you can dictate what truth is. Like, COVID's a great example. Like, we were told that the vaccines were good. We were told that the people who didn't want to get vaccinated just really didn't give a fuck about their neighbors. When in reality, people were getting paid to push vaccines. When in reality, like, we were being pushed off. Like, anything we had, there was no like honesty there. There was only the effort to inculcate and propagandize us into believing what they were telling us. And if the person behind the thing is telling you what to believe, you probably shouldn't fucking believe it.
Do you think it's a side effect of I think what you're talking about, they can both be true, I agree, but I think a side effect of what you're talking about is because of healthcare should probably be centralized, because what you're talking about is a side effect of it not being centralized, because the problem with that is the government has to all of a sudden create all this money to pay this big pharmaceutical company to push this product, and if this product doesn't work, they're kind of screwed because all the money was already given to them. So if they can't come up with anything, they have to just make all these ads and say our product's the best, which is why, frankly, drugs should never be advertised to begin with. That's not how a successful healthcare system works, right? That just feeds the monetary side of it, which is what affords to propagate those advertisements and spread those lies, right? That's where the money is. So it's ridiculous, and I agree completely. They shouldn't have had all those advertisements, all those fake testimonials, all those fake results, whatever it is, right? I mean, there were successful examples of the vaccine, but a lot of it was exaggerated, and some of it was just baseless completely on the sides of how good it was. But I think that's a side effect of what should have been privatized, or not been privatized, rather, because you create that competition when it comes to taking care of people. There should be no competition. It should just be taking care of people. That's why it grinds my gears so much, right? Because it's so much money in big pharma and everything, and then people know how
Hello?
big of an industry it is, and it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be giving like a percentage of our gross domestic product to one company. That's not how that works. How is any other company, like I say I'm a small mom and pop and I created the vaccine? What's the likelihood of me being able to publicize that, or somebody at Pfizer paying a bunch of lawyers to make sure that never sees the light of day, or worse, right? And that's if we're talking about a sports brand, Nike versus whatever, sure, absolutely, free all day, have as many as you want. That's not something that should be privatized. The government shouldn't have any say in what we dress or how we dress or anything like that. But healthcare wise, why should there ever be competition? It should just be whoever has the ability to should be supporting.
Yeah. See, like, okay,
all mankind.
Chris, I agree with you on the universal healthcare thing. I really do, because I think if there's one thing that really, like, everybody should have the right for is healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just the problem right now is what are we gonna do with all the like if we implement it? What are we gonna say with all the people who owns health like business? Like, what, we're just gonna tell them to go fuck themselves?
Well,
like,
we
it's gonna be hard to like convince them.
Well, yes, it wouldn't be
subsidized by the government. I mean, I agree that there needs to be like free healthcare, but I think if you're fucking 40 years old and you haven't got your life together, you can't work. I mean, like, healthcare is pretty easy to get if you're able to work. I think if you're like under the age of 21, like, I think you should have free healthcare. I don't think a fucking parent should be worried about feeding their children and keeping them alive in that like sense. And I think it should be limited by like, well, I mean, like I hate to say it, but Kanye West brought up that like he has different access to medicine. Like there's medicine out there that provides like lower side effects. There's like brilliant surgeons out there that can do shit other people can't do. Now, to say that everyone should be, allowed to go to those people. Like, it's a fucked up thing to say, but like let's say you're really good at fucking mowing lawns. Does that just give anyone an excuse to have you mow their lawn for free? You worked really hard on that skill. I do think the government should subsidize healthcare up to a certain point. Like, you can't be giving billionaires like free healthcare. They don't want that shit.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. You should have there should be like a sub market of like, hey, if you're not, maybe if like the system's inundated, or you have the money and the means to pay for some top, maybe experimental or whatever surgeries, that should be an option to you. It should not, we should privatize it, but then that doesn't mean we should have some power hungry people say it's illegal to start your own healthcare business.
You have to.
That's when it gets into like,
it's a requirement to take this healthcare kind of thing. Yeah.
But one thing I think would be an interesting side effect of doing that is you privatize healthcare, you all of a sudden make it very, very attractive to become a citizen of this country. And I think that's something that a lot of people in the country, Republicans and Democrats alike, have a big issue with, is all the people coming into the country, right? Yeah. I think both parties probably have an issue with privatizing healthcare and probably would think it's the end of all times, when that's a whole nother conversation. But I think it would all of a sudden make a lot of people that are here illegally, at least maybe a small amount of them, reconsider, because now, and of course you'd have to ease the process of maybe becoming a citizen to begin with, right? But that's a very attractive proposition to a family that just left one country with 4 children and she's alone. But I can come here, and as long as I'm honest and I'm not a criminal, I can come here and I can have free healthcare just off the cuff while I'm on disability, finding a job, and then I have a job, and then all of a sudden they're going to high school, and that's, I mean, forgive me, that sounds like the American dream, right? Like that. That's
But like, you do have to come here legally.
Absolutely.
You can't cheat, because that way, like, we can have a sustainable country. Because if we don't know how many people are coming in and living in America, it's hard to determine how much food, how much money we need to provide for everybody, how much house we need to fucking build, like, for example, and all that stuff too. So that is one thing that we need to fix, because who knows? There might be spies from all over the place that comes.
That's true. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely.
So, that's like one of the big things I do want. I really want that needs to get fixed.
I mean, it's the number one thing, like, pushing Donald Trump forward right now.
That is true. That is the one. That is really the reason
about it everywhere. Yeah,
that's the reason why.
I mean, dude, we're so at risk for a terrorist attack right now. Like, like all the bullshit aside, you know what I mean? Like, some people really would benefit from coming to America, right? If we made the process easier, cool. Let's have that argument. But to have the argument that having anyone and everyone come and like not vetting their intentions, you're putting a lot of people at risk. And I personally think a lot of people who argue for shit like that live in places where they feel safe and secure. I don't think many of them have lived in like low income areas where like things like this really fuck up the environment. I mean, if you got 10,000 new people showing up to a place that's like wrapped in gang violence, I mean, how's that going to end? And the problem is, like, major cities are the ones most affected by things like this. Like,
yes, especially.
Like, we've ignored all of the inner city kids. We've ignored the low income families that live there, and all for what? All for virtue signaling. Like, I think if you really cared about people, you would care about your people first. And the problem is there's like this plague of moral relativism where everyone's justified to do what they want if they've been oppressed or hurt. And it's like, hey, dude, like, that's not how governments work. That's not how countries work. Like, we need to get our shit together. Like, we're over here talking about free healthcare. Who the fuck's talking about free healthcare? You know what I mean?
That's the problem.
Fucking, like, free Palestine. Like, what about the fucking homeless guy up the road?
What about our people? Like, why are you caring about people? Like, I get it because they're in war and stuff like that. But I also am a big believer, especially right now, of like improving yourself first before you can improve other people.
Help yourself so you can help others.
Exactly.
Yes. We're all America first, by the way. All of you guys are you're conservative. You know what I mean? Like, the value system has shifted so far in the extremes that, like, everything you're saying is a conservative perspective, like, besides the free healthcare. But the thing is, people are pushed to these extremes and they think the person on the other side's their enemy, when really, like, we just want to have a conversation about the things we care about. and that should be each other. Like, why are we sitting here caring about a country that has fucking, like, dude, there's a global effort to help countries out of poverty and to feed people. You know, there's organizations built around that. Why, you know, if it's not done now, it's that instant gratification shit. If it's not done now, it's never going to get done. Like, let's do our thing first.
Right. And like sometimes I understand that like as a United States, we want to be like the big brother to all the other country and all that stuff. But sometimes we kind of have to let them figure this stuff out. Yeah. Sometimes. Now, I'm not saying we just leave them alone or anything like that, but I'm just saying like we need to stop trying to like feel like we're gonna help people for nothing back. Because the problem with that is if we start doing that too much, they're gonna start trying to take advantage of you, like of us, of the United States. And so we need like, well, we need to, you know, fix our people first, fix, you know, like make sure everybody in America is good. And then when we show that we are like powerful and like actually, and everybody here is great, then we can start helping other people. So that way, all these other countries can actually believe in America, that America can help other countries.
Well, and we've been doing that since World War II, dude. Like that's the globalization. That's the effort of like global economies to like focus on a single narrative. And, you know, America's really been taken advantage of. Like when Benny was talking about wanting to leave the WHO and like NATO, like in a large way, that's exactly what you're saying. It's us wanting to focus on our security, our people, you know, and it's a fucked up thing because everyone sees America as this great defender of liberty and freedom. But I mean, we're not defending our own people. We're like throwing them to the wolves and saying, try your best, you know?
Yeah. All right. Let me change the topic real quick. Cool. I know some of us are going to school right now, but do you guys think school is like a scam?
I think if you go to school for a degree, like in fucking like art history or like, you know, certain degrees are definitely a scam. I mean, when you go to school, you realize that these professors like live in their own world, and that world's called academia, and it's nothing like the outside world. Like I really enjoy having discussions on like politics, as you can see. I love philosophy. I love understanding psychology, you know, but the problem is all that stuff is there. Like think of one time in the real world you've had a conversation about like Plato or Kant.
That's what I mean. Yes, like what I mean is like people don't want to have like conversation anymore. People don't want to have conversation anymore, and like people don't want to. Well, whenever like you try to talk with people, they get. I mean, they're defensive like right away, but for good reason, because there's a lot of like very bad people and like people that will like try to murder you and stuff, or like people that are trying to like take your money and stuff like that. So you see, like their reason is justified why they don't want to talk to you, and so like I feel like one of the only way we can really like connect with people is doing this, like talking on a podcast like this. And this is the reason why I wanted to do the podcast and all this stuff, because I feel like this is the way we connect with each other and and connect with the world more. This is like the way we get there, because now we can talk. And now people can listen, and now people can put their, put the thoughts and stuff in the comments, or start talking themselves on podcasts and all that stuff. And so, yeah. And now college, I have not gone to college yet. I'm starting this August, but I just think that it's becoming more and more useless, and that the only thing that is worth it in college is the piece of paper that says you got a degree. And
yeah, I mean, so just to pause you right there. So the reason college isn't worthless is because it shows your employer that you can do something for 4 years. It shows your employer a lot of good stuff, right? Like the degree is more than the thing you majored in. It's just proof that you can persevere and do something hard. So just to like get that out, like most of what they teach you is a scam, but the piece of paper is like a high school diploma. It's the same thing. But like you can do it.
My point is this. I'm realizing that everything that they teach you in school, you can go learn that yourself. You can really just go learn it yourself. You really can. I'm learning.
Okay. I got to pin it real quick, because like I've been in courses where like these teachers are like hired because they can put like these classes are put together, like they're orchestrated. And like, there's been a lot of instances where there's shit I wouldn't have learned because, we have confirmation bias. So we learn stuff the way we want to learn it. And sometimes having someone teach you a way to learn helps you to learn more.
Give
And
me an
like,
example.
I mean,
Give me
would
one.
you fucking would you teach yourself about Marxism? The Bolshevik Revolution? Would you have taught yourself about like where communism comes from? Would you have like looked into the countries that have suffered from communism? Like you can do this stuff, but who's telling you about this for you to do it? And that's where I think these curated classes help.
All right, but see, that's my point, because I am learning about Marxism right now. Like I'm actually doing it. It's because I'm interested in it now. And so my point is this: like, yes, I'm not saying it doesn't teach you anything. I'm not saying school doesn't teach you anything. Like if they teach you Marxism, you're gonna learn that from there, right? But what I'm learning is also that what you can, like, if you don't go to school and like you really find yourself out, you can figure out how to do whatever you want to do to get that job without the degree. Like if you want to be an engineer, you can go look up how to be an engineer right now. You don't
is that
need
the
to go
same
to
for
school.
people in like impoverished countries though? Like you got to think of the immigrants that come here with whose parents have no education and all they have is a high school education. Like, are they going to think about anything outside of their culture or what they're exposed to? So college exposes you to new things that you have never thought about and new people who think about things different from how you think. So it's really just about like learning different perspectives.
But see, like, yes, see, like that is the best part about college. But why is it capped at such high money then? If that's what it's supposed to do?
That's the corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean by it's a scam.
Yeah, blame Bill Clinton for that one. I mean,
that's what I mean. It's
when
like
you fucking privatize shit and
Yeah,
like
like-
when you subsidize college loans, it gives the fucking institution all the permission to raise the price of college.
Yep.
yes, that's my
so
point.
dangerous.
If it wasn't guaranteed that students would get student loans, college would not be as expensive as it is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my point. Why I mean by it's a scam. I'm not saying college isn't useless because it's very fucking it's useful. It teaches you a lot of things.
It should cost like $350, bro. It should
gets you
cost like
involved in a lot of
$350.
things.
That's about it. I got $350 a semester, 100 on books. If I want to pay more, I go to the cafeteria. That's what it should cost.
Yes, but
I can pay maybe $1,000 if I want to go to a fancy private school.
Yeah,
But anything else, like, where's it going?
exactly.
They have this. They're based on
to prop
history.
up an economy, like they've got professors, they've got administrators. Running a college costs millions of dollars, and like you don't get enough donors, and so like it is. You're right. It is a scam in the sense that like they're raising the prices, and they're doing that to get more control. Like Harvard and Brown are corporations. They're just fucking college institutions. They're
literally businesses. That's what they are.
They're businesses. Yeah. But I mean, like when you build a brand, you want to get paid for having a brand. So like a lot of these institutions use their institution as a brand, like when you think of a Harvard graduate, you don't think of like a fucking regular community school dude. Like you think this person came from wealth or comes from a wealth of knowledge, like you think this person's a hard worker. So like, it's the same thing with the degree. Like you're letting an employer know what you're capable of, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's definitely a scam. They're charging people a lot of money. A lot of it should be free, but you like in our free market, things like this are allowed to exist, and if we privatize education, all we're doing is recreating the public school system and allowing the indoctrination of history,
Bro, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a bad process, man. It's cyclical, and it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. As you know.
Yeah. We're at an hour. I think you got to go, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to finish your thought? Y'all want to?
No.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, it's just cyclical. And it's kind of a snowball effect is all it's going to really kind of is what it's kind of getting towards. And it's what it's going to, I think, there's got to be a lot of legislative changes to have it happen that way. And yeah, man. But yeah, how much longer we got?
I had a good time. Time flew by.
Yeah, I mean, that is what it is like for the first one.
And guys, I if anybody, those out there watching, we appreciate you coming by. Same day every week. It'll be 7:30 Eastern time. What time are you out of there on the other coast there, Shazah?
5:30 over here Mountain Time.
Gotcha. Okay. We appreciate y'all coming, and hopefully we can see y'all next week.
Yeah, the 3 great debates.